Good afternoon. So today we are going to be doing Chapter 2, Lesson 4. The title is Partial Quotients. It's in your Math Big Book, pages 73 to 74. Your I can statement, so this is what you're going to be able to complete at the end of the direct instruction after I've taught this. You're going to be able to use partial quotients to divide by two-digit divisors. Now, you've used partial quotients in 4th grade, so this is kind of like a refresher. So we're going to know how to move on. So I always have your vocabulary because it's really important that we use mathematic terms in math. So dividend is the number being divided. Divisor is the number you divide by. Your quotient is your answer. And then partial quotients here is the parts of an answer to a division problem. And then inverse operations is in which multiplication and division are the inverse of each other, so they basically can undo each other. And I provide the same examples that I've been providing. Again, you don't have to rewrite the vocabulary words because you've written them for the past 3 lessons, but they're just here too as a constant reminder. All right, so let's go ahead and look at this. We have 4 times 10, and then 52 times 10 gives me 520, and then 916 times 10 gives me 9,160. So I want you to think about this, and I want you to think, what's the pattern of zeros, or what am I noticing when I multiply by 10? Good, so you should have talked a little bit about it. And you should be noticing something here is our tens. Boop, boop. Okay, provide us with an additional 0. And this just means that our 916 is being shifted to the left and basically moving the 9 to the hundreds place value. Sorry, the 9 in the hundreds place value is moving to the thousands. The 1 in the tens place goes to the hundreds. The 1 in the 6 in the ones place goes to the tens place, and then we have that placeholder 0. All right, so that's what the rule that you could basically find out to do mental math with a number and 10 is basically adding that 0. So anytime you have 5 times, anytime you're multiplying by 10, you will be able to know that that additional 0 is being added. All right, so here's a little video for you all to show long division using partial quotients.
To find how many nines go into 25, start with 10 groups of 9, then draw a subtraction sign, and write the 90 that you multiplied. Keep track of the nines by writing 10 on the side. Then subtract 90 and get 135. Another 10 groups of 9 is 90, which will fit inside 135. Then draw a subtraction sign and write the 90 that you multiplied. Keep track of the nines by writing 10 on the side. Then subtract 90 and get 45. Now we'll find out how many nines will go into 45. 5 groups of 9 is 45. Subtracting 0 is what you'll find. Keep track of the nines by writing 5 on the side. Add them up and the quotient is 25.
All right. So that's just a little review about how to use partial quotient method to divide. And this is just maybe like a refresher. Like I said, you guys did complete this in 4th grade. All right, so we're going to go ahead and look at the problem on page 73. I'm going to go ahead and read it out loud. It says, people in the United States eat about 23 pounds of pizza per person each year, or every year. If you ate that much pizza each year, how many years would it take you to eat 775 pounds of pizza? Now, what I always like to do with word problems, I like to use bucks, and it helps you really break down a word problem. So let's go ahead and box the question. How many years would it take you to eat 775 pounds of pizza? So you're trying to find out how long will it take you in years to eat that much pizza. Now we're going to underline our key information, which is 775 pounds and 23 pounds. Okay? So you eat 23 pounds per year, and you want to know how long it's going to take you to eat 775 pounds. Now we're going to circle keyword is each year and how many years. And I missed one. I also want to say per person every year. So these are keywords as well to help you evaluate what kind of operation we're going to be using. And when I say operation, I mean addition, multiplication, subtraction, or division. All right, so now we're not going to knock anything out because mostly everything in this problem is important. But we are going to go ahead and state our strategy, operation, and solve. So our strategy we're going to be using is partial quotients because that's what this strategy that we're learning about in this part of the book. Then the operation based off, per every year, each year, how many years will it take you, that's going to tell you you're doing division. Now we're going to solve this using our big book. Here is the multiplication question that I have, which is, division problem that I have, 775 divided by 23. All right, so we're going to look at the big book information. Oh, before we go that, I have a few questions. In partial quotient division, which is the strategy we're using, we often multiply the divisor, and over here our divisor is 23. We multiply the divisor by 10. Explain why you think multiples of 10 are used. Why would we want to use multiples of 10 of our divisor? So you should know that when you multiply by 10, like we saw at the very beginning, it's really simple. You're shifting their numbers to the left in the place value, or you're just adding a 0. So that's why it's super easy when we use partial quotients, when we use multiples of 10. Can you use any multiples of 23 in step 1? And if you look at your book, you can look at what step 1 has. But yeah, you can use any multiples of 23 as long as it's less than the dividend. And our dividend in our problem is 775. So as long as it's less than your dividend, you are good to go. Now, what are you adding when you add all of the partial quotients? So at the very end, we're going to be adding all of the partial quotients. Now when we add them all together, this is just showing the different groups that we have. So remember, we're dividing 775 divided by 23, and that's going to give us how many groups we have. Or in this case, how long it's going to take you to eat that much pizza. All right, so here we have our big book. And on page 73, it states to divide using partial quotients. And we have our problem set up already in our book, so we're going to go ahead and work together to complete this. So with partial quotients, you're just finding multiples of 10 right now. So let's go ahead and start off here. We have 10 times 23. So we need to write that down in here. 10 times 23 equals 230. Good. And when you subtract that, you're going to be left with 543. Now you're wanting to track on the other side of this line, you're wanting to track how many tens you use or how many times you multiply by 23. So let's go ahead and we can do another 10 times 23 here, because as long as it's less than my dividend. All right, so we're going to subtract. 543 minus 230 gives me 315. And I'm going to go ahead and track that 10 I used again over here so I don't forget. You want to do it every time. We're going to do another 10 times 23. And we're going to go ahead and take that away from 315. And we are left with 85. And don't forget to track that 10. All right, now, well, what we're going to do here, we can't do another 10 times 23 because that's too large of what we have here of 85. So we want to go ahead and now we're going to multiply 23 maybe times 5. We're trying to get close as possible. Now, for me, what helps is rounding 23. I'm going to round it to 20. And then I'm going to be like, okay, so 20, I know, because it's easy multiplication. 20 times 5 gives me 100. So that's too high. So then I'm going to go ahead and erase that. And let's do a lower number. I'm going to do 20 times 4. And that's going to give me 80. I'm going to try that. I'm going to try that with 23 times 5. And I think it's going to be too large. So not like times 5, times 4. And I really think it's going to be too large because of that additional 3 that we have there. So off to my side, I'm just going to do 23 times 4, which gives me 12 there. 8, 92. It's too large. So let's move down 1 and let's do it times 3 instead. I'm going to go ahead and erase my work up here. Times 3. So 23 times 3 gives me 69. All right, so let's go ahead and do that. So let's take away 69. And I might run out of room, so I might have to do some erasing. All right, let's subtract that. 16. Now don't forget to track that 3 groups of 23 that you just used. Awesome. So we have here is our quotient. And you can look at it here. You want to add all these things, all the groups of 23 that you tracked here. So 10 plus 10 plus 10 plus 3 gives me 33. That's my quotient. 33, remainder 16. So that is how you do partial quotients. And I'm going to go to the next page. You can definitely pause it so you can make sure you write down the work. This is where I was supposed to do. I completed it all in this one, so I'm just going to skip this page. So we went ahead and we already solved, and we got 33 remainder 16. And I'm going to go ahead and write that down here. 30, not a good color right there. That's pen. 33 remainder 16. And remember, we're using the units of years. All right, so my question here is, how many years would it take you to eat 775 pounds of pizza? Yeah, definitely. You know that because your answer is 33 years. But be careful there because we have a remainder of 16. So it's not exactly 33 years, but it's a little bit more than 33 years, but not exactly 34 years. So that's important depending on your question right here. Depending on your question, a remainder may or not be used in answering the question. Okay, sometimes the quotient needs to be adjusted based on the remainder. And we'll talk more about that, but sometimes you'll have to round up. Sometimes it's asking you, you'll have to round out based off the question. Sometimes you're going to have to round up and make it 34 years. In this case, we could say it's going to take us about 33 years to about 34 years to eat 775 pounds of pizza. All right, so we're going to go ahead and move on to the next one. We're on page 74, and we have a new problem, and we're going to go ahead and bucks this problem as well. So Miles is helping his father with the supply order for his pizza. Miles is helping his father with the supply order for his pizza shop. For next week, the shop will need 1,450 ounces of mozzarella cheese. Each package of cheese weighs 32 ounces. Complete Miles' work to find out how many packages of mozzarella cheese he will need to order. All right, so let's go ahead and buck. So what's our question? How many packages of mozzarella cheese does he need to order? Okay, good, very nice. We need to figure out packages of cheese. Then we're going to underline 1,450 ounces of that's how much they need for the next week. And each package is in 32 ounces. Then we're going to circle important information, which states each, packages, how many. This all tells us that we're going to need the strategy of partial quotient, because that's what we're working on. We're going to divide, and now we're going to solve using our big book. Now here is the problem, which is 1,450 divided by 32. All right, so they gave you this already in your workbook. So all we're going to be doing is completing it for Miles. So we're just going to be adding the correct information. So let's go ahead and look at this one. We have the first problem, the first subtraction, which we have here, is 320. Now, what do you think 32 is being multiplied to get us 320? Good. Should have stated 10. So we're going to go ahead and make sure that we mark that over here. So we have 10. Now, they went ahead and already subtract the information for us. So they subtract 1,450 minus 320, which gave us 1,130. Then we go ahead and do the same thing, another 10, because we can see that we have that there. We'll mark it over here to the side. Then another 10, because you can tell because of the 30. We'll mark it off to the side. Another 10 was multiplied, mark it off to the side. And again, the problem is being completed for us. Now, here's the one part. 32 times a number gives me 160. So I'm going to go ahead and do some simple estimation. So I'm going to round 32 to 30. And I want to find out a number that's close to 160. So I'm just going to count by 30s. 30, 60, 90, 120, 150, and then I think I'm going to stop there. So 150 is close to 160. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times. So I'm going to go to multiply 32 times 5 to verify that is correct. Good, 160. So then we went ahead and multiplied by 5 here. So I track that over here. And then I add all these to figure out my quotient. And I have 45. 45, remainder 10. Remainder 10. You might not see the 10 that well over here off to the side. Remainder 10. So we found our quotient. So we're going to know that he's going to need 45 packages, remainder 10. Now, I have a question for you about that. Oops. What does the remainder represent? Explain how the remainder is going to affect your answer. So we have a remainder of 10 in there. So that's going to affect our answer big time because we can't get a piece of a package. We're going to need to get another package. So instead of getting 45 packages, we're going to want to get 46 packages. So he has to order 46 because of this remainder 10. So because of the problem, we're going to have to round up. Yep, and that's the end of that one. So now we're going to go ahead and do this one. Try this. Use different partial quotients to solve the problem above. All right, so I'm going to help guide you on this one because instead of using multiples of 10, let's actually go do multiples of 20 to reduce our amount of work that we have to do. Now, it's very simple to use multiples of 20. Instead of multiplying by 10, this time you're going to multiply by 20. So we're going to go ahead and show our work here. Let's go ahead and do 32 times 20. Now you could just multiply 32 times 2, which gives us 64. And then add that 0, which equals 640. So we're going to subtract 640. Again, you could do multiples of 10, but sometimes it takes too long to do multiples of 10, especially for large dividends. So we want to try to make our work a little bit easier. So I make sure I track my 20 over here on the side, and I'm going to go ahead and subtract my 640 from my dividend. And then I have 810. Now I'm going to do another 32 times 20. And I'm going to track it over here because I know 32 times 20 is 640. And I'm going to go ahead and subtract that. Take away my 8, borrow from my 8. 170. Nice. And then we're going to go ahead and, let's see, 30, like I did last time, I rounded 32. I rounded it to 30. And I'm going to count by 30s, 30, 60, 90, 120, 150, 180. Now I'm going to go ahead and actually use 150 because that's because I have 32, not 30. So that's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I'm going to do 32 times 5. And we solved this above. Let's see, I'm going to do it over here because I don't recall what it was. 160. All right. So I want to track my 5 over here. Subtract 160. And I'm left with a remainder 10. So my quotient, I add that up. 20 plus 20 equals 40 plus 5 equals 45. So my quotient is 45 remainder 10. Maybe my highlighter will make it 45 remainder 10. Awesome. And again, you could do multiples of 10. I just went ahead and did multiples of 20 because one, lack of space. And it just makes, and I'm able to do less steps than if I did multiplying by tens. Now, a math idea, when you use different multiples of the divisor to find partial quotient provides many ways to solve a division problem. Some ways are quicker, but all results come out with the same answer. Now, if you went ahead and did multiples of 10, that's fine. You still would have gotten the answer of 45 remainder 10. All right, go ahead and this is the share and show. So this is the part where you practice what you know or what I've instructed about partial quotients. Go ahead and do page 75, numbers 1 to 3. Pause. Go ahead and pause this. When you're ready, go ahead and press play. Good. There's your answer. Now this is on your own. Go ahead and pause and complete 4 through 6. And press play when you're ready. All right, page 75, 7 through 9. Go ahead and pause, complete on your own, and press play. And then 10 through 17. All right, now remember, you're not required to do every problem. You're not going to have to do all 17 problems. Choose between whatever's going to help you. I suggest between 8 to 10 if you really want to make sure you understand this strategy of partial quotients. If you feel you already know it from 4th grade, you can do 5. Again, it is practice. All right, guys, have a great evening.